Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last November, Mr. Harris, I believe we had a conversation, and I asked you regarding remote access management and the two-factor authentication at the department. This is an important point for me, I guess for all of us, because this is the first time this has happened. Remember, it was a failure in access management that contributed to the data breach over at OPM. It is especially troubling given the department's failure over the summer during the cyber sprint. And I'm going to come back to the cyber sprint in just a few minutes, but I want to stay on this two-factor authentication. Mr. Harris, you told me during my previous question back in November that the department has 100% implemented two-factor authentication, and that the financial system audits would be also at 100% by December. However, according to the Inspector General, and this is from the FSMA audit 2014, end of year, it says in some instances, although the department said it completed a recommendation, we continue to find that the corrective actions were not implemented. Do you agree or disagree with that finding?
Based on my discovery, yes, I have found that the discipline that should have been in place in terms of some of the recommendations and findings, recommendations, and caps were not made, and that's something that the senior team now is ensuring will never happen again.
So what you testified to me in November, you're basically saying today was not accurate or was not true?
It was based on my understanding.
Well, what was your understanding based on?
Based on the facts that my staff had provided me.
So this is the staff's fault. It wasn't yours. You're just going off what the staff told you. So what you said in November is not true, but what you're testifying today is.
I always base my decisions on the data pulled by staff, but at the end of the day, it's my responsibility.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that part. What about the contractors that we're dealing with? Are you sitting here testifying under oath today that as I look through these contractors, that every one of these contractors are also operating under a two-factor authentication? Are you saying that's the case as well?
We are saying that is the case.
So
the 95% is based on what we are doing internally as well as the contractors are doing.
You also stated that the department's two-factor authentication is at level 4 in terms of the level of assurance according to the NIST authentication guidelines. Is that correct?
That is correct, with the exception of those that use PIV-I.
Okay. So if that's the case, then you're not employing two-factor authentication, but the department is also employing the highest level of assurance for 100% of all its users. That's the goal right here.
That is the goal, sir.
Okay, all right. Well, here's the issue in coming back to this cyber sprint, okay? In this summer, 14% minus. And then within a few months, you have secured 100%. How in the world does that happen over that short period of time?
More times than not, it's about configuring the system, issuing PIV cards, and turning that on.
But why didn't you do that earlier then?
I think the technical challenge for the vendors that implemented this and maintained these systems was larger than we anticipated.
Well, it appears to us that it's only when the light is shown on the deficiencies or you start bringing these grades of concurrent Fs that you're willing to do something. Mr. King, you're fidgeting over there. You're wanting to jump in. What do you have to say on this?
Yes, sir. So the department had previously used a level 3 goal. That goal was changed to level 4. And I joined the department in January 2015, began meeting regularly with the team on how we might improve our cybersecurity. After the sprint, we began meeting weekly to ensure that we would get to level 4 across the agency. In the federal student aid area, we have a number of external contractors. They use PIV-I. In order to get to 95%, we needed to amend nearly 60 contracts, which we did with external vendors, provided technical assistance to those external vendors. That's why we're at 95%. So I just want to convey again the urgency that we brought to this matter throughout my time at the department.
Yeah, you've been conveying, and almost to me, you're trying to cover here. I think the Congresswoman from D.C., Ms. Dorton, really brought it to a point here, saying there's no consequences for the actions. The people get scored, your grade didn't change at all, you're still getting high marks, and I think it's the irony of this is education. So what in the world are we teaching our children? There's no consequences for their actions? Mr. King, you're still defending the actions like this is no big deal. I don't understand that. I want to ask you right now, I want to come back to this. Under oath, are you still saying to me and to this panel and to the American people that you do not believe that any standard of ethical conduct was breached. Is that your testimony?
My testimony was that I saw significant lapses in judgment, that I counseled
That's what you
Harris.
said. Do you believe that today or not?
Yeah, I believe
Do
there
you
was
believe that
significant-
any ethical standard of conduct was breached or was broken?
I do not believe there was a violation of law or regulation or policy of the department. However, I do believe there were significant lapses in judgment. I counseled Dr. Harris on those. That was the fourth counseling that he
So
received on that
lapses
matter.
of judgment, ethical conduct, those two merge at all, or are those two separate things? You sit here today and you blame it on your general counsel and lawyers for not taking a position of leadership and holding the people accountable.
No, sir.
You understand why the American people are
I
frustrated with this?
disagree with that characterization. I took it very seriously. It's why I engaged in additional counseling of Dr. Harris. It's why I asked that the counseling that he'd received from the ethics officer to be put in
You
writing.
took it very serious. What actions did you take toward Mr.
Again,
Harris?
I engaged
My time has
counsel-
expired. I'm sorry. I have to yield
Once
back.
again,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.